Hey guys, this is Bart coming to you from TST Industries in Florida, bringing you another episode of TST Garage. In this episode, we have a brand new 2018 model of the Yamaha MT-07. As you can see, it's still got the floppy signals and the stock fender. And this video will show you how to install our TST Industries Fender Eliminator on this bike. Before we strip down the OEM components and we go through the installation, I want to explain to you how the ordering works on our website. You're presented with a number of choices, and then you'll be able to configure the package that you want and that suits you best. So the base component of our system is our closeout. This is a high-end CNC machined aluminum anodized piece. It features holes for mounting the license plate bracket options to the closeout, one hole for routing wires, and two holes for mounting to the bike. This is in all the systems that we sell as far as fender elimination goes for this bike. The two different choices that you have is the static bracket. It's pre-bent at an angle that is pretty much the optimal angle for having your license plate on the bike. You're not able to adjust it. It's a less expensive option, but it gets the job done. The upper end of the fender elimination components for this bike is the adjustable system. It is mounted on CNC machined hinges. It's all aluminum CNC machined construction, and it enables you some adjustability to the system so you could dial in that angle that you like to hang your license plate on. In addition, you're able to get these links that give you two additional knuckles of adjustability. So if you want to further customize this setup, you can get a kit of these two with all the fasteners that go with them, and you'll be able to get all this different adjustability so that you can perform this in case you really want to. When you ditch your OEM fender, you're getting rid of your signals, you're getting rid of your license plate light. So we do sell a nice low profile license plate light that goes and pairs together with our systems very nicely. It's very easy to install. We do have separate videos covering the installation of that part, so we will not show you the installation of that here. You also need some sort of a signaling system. So we have a number of different options. We have these BL6 signals. We do have other pod signals that are available on our website. And we also have this really nice high-end integrated taillight that we've designed here and we manufacture. So we will have a separate video covering the installation of this component. For now, all I really want to do is get on the bike and start wrenching. So follow along and let's get started. In step one, I'll be removing the license plate and saving the hardware that came on the bike to reuse on our new setup. Next, I'll remove the passenger seat. Now we can jump down to the bottom under the tail and remove the fasteners that are located there. There are 5 push fasteners located on the undertail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every one gets pressed in the center and then extracted. The 3 smaller ones will be reused later. These 2, the larger ones, will not. Once these are out, this shroud here will pull down, and by pulling it forward, we'll be able to remove it. Now we can move on up top. Next, we will remove this trunk panel, up and back, empty the contents of the trunk, and then using a 5mm Allen key, remove these 2 fasteners. That frees the driver's seat. We can remove that as well. Now we have access to all these other fasteners. We will need to remove these 2 using a 4mm Allen. These 2 up here using a 4mm Allen. Now when you extract these up here, they do have a shoulder washer that comes off with them. Make sure to retain that. Now we can switch off to a 12mm socket and remove these 4 fasteners here. 2 under here and 2 here. Once again, we have spacers in there that need to come out. Now we'll be able to dislodge the tail sections, the right and left tail section, away from the tail light. There is a friction fastener on this panel here that interfaces with a grommet on the tail light itself, so we'll need to pry that away. Now the center undertail panel may pop out on you because it's completely free, so I'll just put it back in place up on the wheel. And this rubber panel here can be extracted and put away. Now we find all these wires here for the fender lighting components and also the tail light. We'll unplug all of the fender components. They do go through a series of cable management clips. We'll undo all of that. There's one central cable management clip here. I will just pop it out. We won't be using that on our new setup. The one additional thing I like to do during these installations is the removal of the tail light. On this particular bike, we have better access to all the fasteners for the Fender Eliminator if we take the tail light off temporarily. If you're doing an integrated tail light, this is also a great combined step to do while you do everything so that you don't have to redo steps. I'll switch over to a 4mm Allen, extract these two fasteners, and once again they do have spacers, so I will retain those. Now the tail light should just slide back. Make sure you don't snag any wires, put it to the side, and then we can pick up from this view. We'll be taking down the actual hardware that holds the whole fender assembly on. So under here we have 4 8mm hex head fasteners holding the fender assembly on. I'm going to use an 8mm socket to take them off. I'm going to hold the fender assembly while I take out the last one so it doesn't just drop. And make sure to milk out the wires so that they don't snag on anything. And now we're done with this. We can go on to construct the Fender Eliminator of our choice to put back on this bike. All right, so regardless whether you got the standard or adjustable setup, the installation on the bike is exactly the same. So on the table in front of us, I will show you how to construct each version, and then we'll choose which one we want to put on the bike. All those steps beyond that will be the same. So let's start with the standard one. This baggie contains all of the hardware that's necessary for mounting this to the bike, plus a small screw and one nut for blocking out this hole in case you're not running any wires into the bike. If you're running a license plate light and or signals, then you would leave this open. For our installation, we'll block it off. This will take a 3mm Allen and an 8mm either socket or box wrench. Next, we will grab the bracket, position it like this, stack a washer on the provided screw, get it through, and on the other side we'll use one of these nylock locking nuts, hand thread it on, repeat on the other side. Now we'll grab a 4mm Allen and a 10mm box wrench or a socket. And start tightening down. And we do have locking nuts on all of these fasteners, so technically we do not need any thread locking agents. All right, so now this is ready to go on the bike using the provided hardware. Next, I'll show you guys how to pre-configure this more involved setup for the adjustable Fender Eliminator. It has a few more parts. It's a little bit more cumbersome, so I want to go through these steps here. I think I'm going to install this version of the Fender Eliminator on the bike, so for the purpose of our demonstration here, I won't be blocking off the center hole on the closeout. One thing I want to mention about the closeout is available separately in case you guys already have some sort of a swing arm mounted license setup and you just want to block off the hole left behind by the Fender. We do offer this by itself. What I like to do with these components is plan them out spatially like this. Makes the process simpler. All right, so let's grab our closeout, grab one of the hinges and configure it like this. You can see as a swooping geometry, the swoop will go towards the rear of the bike. Washer, screw. Now, there are no thread locking components integrated into this setup, so if you want to be safe and make sure that your setup doesn't come apart, I would recommend putting a little bit of blue Loctite into these threads. This will prevent your system from loosening during road vibration, and you'll be more likely to keep your setup on the bike. This takes a 4mm Allen here. I get it to the bottom, back it off just a little bit, flip it over, and then make sure that it is parallel to the center axis of the bike and the closeout. Once it's adjusted, tighten down on it. It does end up moving a little bit when you try to tighten it down, so you can use a 10mm wrench here to prevent it from moving. Now this is one of those setups, once it's built and we put it on the bike, really doesn't afford you much adjustability. So I would say these hinges have to be on pretty perfect before you put this whole assembly on the bike. What we can do is refine the placement once we assemble the rest of these components. So I will get another washer, screw, and hinge. I'll get these pretty parallel. Next, we'll need to fit the angled brackets onto these hinge bosses. If you take a look closely here, there's a raised surface on this boss that interfaces with the hole and centers it. That ensures proper hinge action. I have 2 more screws and washers hiding out with the rest of my hardware. There are 12mm M6 screws. Before we put them in, I recommend getting a little bit of thread lock in there. So again, I'll center this bracket on here. Now, I recommend going with the angle towards the back of the bike like this. If you reverse this, your license plate will sit on the reverse angle. If that is your cup of tea, then have at it. Washer, screw, 4mm Allen. Snug it up, but leave some adjustability. So in this state, you want these 2 brackets to be parallel to each other, because now we will be installing the main flat bracket on top of that. We'll be using the center holes, center in this 3-pack here. Countersunk screw. And on the other side we have the lock nut. So now We'll need to tighten down these connections, but we'll need to ensure that we are centered. We'll be using a 3mm Allen and an 8mm box wrench. We'll snug them up first. Okay, now that we don't have this rattling around, we can actually center it. And tighten down on those two screw and nut connections. What I like to do is leave some adjustability here. The final angle is pretty much set while this setup is on the bike. So I leave that alone. I just make sure that the hinges are parallel to each other, or the axis of each of the screws is coaxial. So as you can see here, we're off by just a little bit. What I'm going to do is loosen them up a little bit and hold them with my wrench and then tighten down. All right, and that is pretty much ready to go on the bike. Like I said, whether you've opted for the standard version or the adjustable, the rest of the steps is exactly the same. This looks so much better on the bike, but some guys just feel like this does enough for them. Choice is yours. I really like both of them equally. We're going to proceed with this one. All right, so let's get on the bike and do the rest of the install. Okay, so now I'm going to replace this panel that popped out in an earlier state. We have one tab that goes in there, and if we just stretch these plastics over, it'll keep it in place. Now our Fender Eliminator setup will need one of these screws on each side through the deep undersunk hole, a spacer, and a nut from the top. So this tab goes above our plastic piece here, and then we line up the screw through one of the holes in the subframe here. Get our locking nut over that, and repeat the steps on the other side. Now that this is already in the bike, it's a little bit more cumbersome, but still doable with the tail light off. That's why I told you guys to take it off. Same process. Nut caps it off. And at this point, I like to replace one of the push fasteners that we took out. Reset it. And then that tab that I just showed you, I went up above this plastic panel, has a hole in it, and this little push pin connects it together, and this will make it vastly easier to complete the assembly from this point forward with that in. So 8mm box wrench and a 3mm Allen. I like to snug all this up and make sure that everything is centered. So what we'll have to do is get these side fairing pieces pushed back in towards the center to see if we're doing good here. Yep, that looks pretty good. Now the holes in the closeout are countersunk. They are supposed to self-center, but the holes in the subframe are a little bit larger than the fasteners, so I like to check all that and make sure we're good. And we can snuggle this stuff up. We'll perform one more check after the taillight's in, but everything looks to be good. All right, let's pop the taillight back in. This is pretty much the reverse order of this assembly. Same routing. It goes in the same spot. I will plug it in. Grab these fasteners with the spacers that came out of these grommets in an earlier step. Get them hand threaded in. Everything is still looking pretty good. I will engage the clips on all of these parts that have to come together, make sure that I am still centered here. Looks like I did a pretty good job. If at this point you have a larger gap, substantially larger gap on one side than the other, then you will want to back up a step, loosen up the fasteners here and transpose it just a little bit so that it's even and perfect. I think I did a pretty good job here, so I'll back up to here, get my rear rubber panel installed on top of the taillight, and then slide my side fairing pieces over, making sure that the bottom does go over that center panel in the undertail, and then making sure that I don't curl that rubber piece under the screw tabs. Also have to make sure that this tab under here actually goes above our undertail closeout. So a few things that need to happen simultaneously, but if you're careful and precise, it's all pretty easy. And voila. Now we've supplied you guys in the hardware kit with these push pins. There was a panel here that we took out with the fender. Came out with 2 large push pins. Told you these will not be reused, so these fasteners are reused in that place. And then the remaining 2 push fasteners go in the more forward locations here. And that's pretty much done down here. We'll hop up top, replace all of the fasteners that we took out in the reverse order of disassembly, and then we'll be good to go. As you guys can see, I do not like doing reassemblies with a power tool. There's too much of a chance of cross-threading and over-torquing components that way. I like to do everything with a hand tool. On the way back in. Now here's a little note, make sure that the rubber component is under this plastic piece. And the shoulder washer that came out of there is meant for centering everything together. So as you try to fasten it, turn that screw in, move the components around so they get a chance to actually center. All right, so let's get our license plate back on the bike. I'm using the hardware that I took off the OEM setup. If you do not have OEM hardware, you could also grab a set of these along with your license plate setup here at TST Industries. Okay, so I'm going to center my stuff here. And then I'm gonna be done. All right, took me about 15 minutes to get this done. Really nice cleanup job here. Lightweight, way less bulky, and really cleans up the whole rear end of the bike. Now, in the next episode, we'll be installing our integrated taillight in here. Hope you guys will check that out. Besides that, we have a whole host of parts like this for the MT-07 and other bikes on our website, tstindustries.com. We have ample information, extra photos. I hope you guys will check that out. tstindustries.com. We'll see you there.